So essentially, this webinar is designed to open the introduction, open a discussion on project sustainability. So as Bente was saying, this deals with once the project sort of lifetime, which we define as when the Commission, European Commission, or other funding source has been providing funding, has been overseeing the project. Once that period is over, and there's still the desire, the requirement to continue the project. Basically, what then? How do you deal with this? So that's what we'll be talking about. I think especially in European Commission projects, there's been definitely, we're seeing more interest from the part of the European Commission to ensure project sustainability. So I think this is kind of an interesting topic to discuss for a lot of people who are managing or participating to these projects. So essentially, what is sustainability? In a word, sustainability is the process of maintaining change in a balanced fashion. So this is a little bit of an oxymoron, but essentially it's about thinking beyond the lifetime of the project. So what happens to the project once that initial funding period is over? And it requires a bit of not mental gymnastics, but a bit of creative thinking, just to think of what are the assets of the project, and how can these assets or developments continue on into the future. And the reason why this is a wheel is because this process is essentially a continuous repeating cycle, which needs to be repeated throughout the lifetime of the project, and not a one-time or one-off effort, which is sort of tacked on at the end. So I like to think of it sort of as baking an apple pie. When you want to make an apple pie, you don't just make a plain pie and then when it comes out of the oven, put an apple on top, right? You need to sort of bake in the apples into the pie from the beginning. And so sustainability needs to be sort of an integral part of the project from the outset. And so another aspect is there may be a partner which is tasked with responsibility for project sustainability. But again, this isn't the right way of thinking about it. So project sustainability needs to be baked in. It needs to be a shared responsibility amongst all the partners throughout the lifetime of the project. So you basically, the key takeaway of this slide is that project sustainability can't be outsourced. It can't be given to one person to sort of ensure that it gets done. It's something which needs to be thought about from the beginning and which all participants to the project need to take an active part in ensuring the project as a whole achieves sustainability. So very quickly, how do you achieve sustainability? Very quickly, it's in the simplest form, it's about meeting the needs of the end users. So it's been essentially it exists in the vector between the users and your project. So of course, I mean, it seems simple, but it's kind of a complex topic because users or the people who benefit from the output of your project are not a homogeneous monolithic entity. So users might be fragmented in different communities. They might have different sophistication level, different needs. So it's a kind of a complex issue, but the first step is realizing that in order for a project to be sustainable, it needs to provide value to a subset or a group or a community of users. So the first step is to think, who can benefit from the achievements of my project? Is it an academic community? Is it government policymakers? Is it the private sector, businesses? And so once you ask yourself these questions and you know who can derive value from the project, then you can begin to identify who the users are and tailor your project in such a way that you're maximizing the value generated for those users. Then we move on to the next step, and there's different ways of achieving this. You can do just a survey. So once you know who the end users are, you can reach out to them and ask them, what are their needs, what are their expectations, what are the pain points that your project can meet. So one way of achieving this is via, for example, a survey, amongst others. We move to the next sort of layer, and this is essentially implementing best practices into your project. So meeting end user requirements is a necessary principle, but it's not a sufficient one. In and of itself, that's not enough to ensure sustainability. You also need to ensure that your project is implementing industry recognized best practices. So this means you're making sure the project provides value, but you're doing so in, for example, a user-friendly way. or that the data you provide is accessible, easily accessible. So one way to achieve this is to look around for comparable projects or look at other initiatives in your field and basically learn what lessons have they learned, what challenges have they faced and overcome, and essentially learn these lessons and apply these best practices to your project. So you're building upon and improving on the efforts of others. And then finally, the final layer is to apply everything you've learned. So what are the user requirements you're meeting? What are the industry best practices? And then apply these to your specific project to operationalize these general practices into specific, concrete, actionable elements in your project. So this is quite vague, of course, but we'll try to make this a little bit more concrete. So in our project, which is called NextGEOSS, we are working to develop a new online platform for Earth observation data. So we're building, we take data from satellites, we process the data, and then we serve this data to end user communities. And so in order to identify or study how we could deliver the most value to our specific end users, we conducted a survey of potential users of this Earth observation platform. And we asked them a series of questions to determine what they considered the most important needs or what their requirements were, which you see here on the left. So these are what our respondents, our users said, this is what their needs are. This is what they need to be met. And then we also asked them what their current pain points were, what the challenges that they faced with other platforms that exist on the market or that they use, which is on the right. So here we have what they struggle with, what the issues are, what the current supply of solutions isn't able to provide the challenges. And then what we did is we did a study where we sort of mixed the two, we analyzed the two. And the goal of our project is to maximize, to focus on this top tier and to maximize end user value by focusing at the same time in the most important service features, what they want to see, as well as solving the main challenges which they face today with the current solutions offered. So we move on to the next point, which is thinking about sustainability. So I think one of the major misconceptions is that the only way for a project to ensure sustainability is for the entire project as a whole to remain exactly as it is. So that your project needs to transition from receiving a grant or European Commission or government funding to a fully viable commercial funding model. And that's not really necessarily the case. So I think project sustainability should be thought about as sustainabilities instead. So a project has many different moving parts, is made up of different constitutive elements, different parts, moving pieces which work together. And these elements can be tangible. So, a new product, a new service, a new technology, which was developed throughout the course of your project. But you should sort of move a step further and think about potential intangible elements of your project. So for example, your project may have been able to create a network around it. It may have been able to build a community of users who were previously fragmented but are now linked. And this community, this network effect, can be valuable and can serve a function. So this is sort of an idea of an intangible asset of your project, which could potentially, that specific part could be sustainable, even if the rest of the project maybe isn't. Another example of this is sort of a lighthouse effect. So your project can sort of act to attract users or to serve a guiding function. So in essence, it's important to sort of think creatively when you think about project sustainability. And the ideal is that the entire project is preserved in its current state. This isn't always possible or feasible. And such, it's useful to break down the project into its different elements and consider each one in turn and think about, can a specific process developed in the project be preserved? Can a specific conclusion or technique or mechanism be used, reused, and essentially find a new home somewhere else? So to conclude, this is my last slide. I've written here a few sort of initial high-level takeaways. So it's difficult to generalize for all projects, which is why every project needs to sort of go through this exercise by itself. But I think at a minimum, these three basic concepts apply to many, if not the majority, of research projects, and this may sort of help guide your thinking. So the central question you should be asking yourself is, what problem is my project trying to solve for my users, right? And so these different aspects need to be thought about. Who are the users? What are their needs? What are their problems? How do I solve those problems? And this question needs to be asked over and over again at every stage of the project, and not only by one or two partners, but by all partners. So this question needs to be thought about, dissected, analyzed, and answered multiple times at different stages. And a big challenge is that the real value of your project to users needs to be demonstrated and proven. So who are the stakeholders of the product or the findings or the service or whatever project output, and how does this give them value? So then the next step is you can think about a niche. So a niche market should be identified, should be exploited. And then finally, the end users, whether it's community, whether it's a government, community, or academic, or industry, needs to be identified and actively marketed to, right? And this is a lot of, maybe universities or research groups have difficulty marketing, but this marketing can come in many forms. There needs to be essentially a sort of a two-way engagement, a user engagement, which is continuous and not one-off. So a question you should ask yourself is, how much user feedback have I sought? How much have I listened to? And crucially, how much of this user feedback have I incorporated into my project and in my project development process? So have conversations with potential users changed what you do? And have your original plans evolved over time? This is how you know that your user engagement has been effective. If your initial proposal, the final product, may be different from the initial proposal because you've sought user reactions and feedback and you've implemented them in your project. So that's all I have on my side.
So I will briefly introduce a sort of platform for sustainability of projects and how we deal with results of various EU projects and national projects in Plan for All. So I will go briefly through the history of setting up this association and what was the supporting or creative elements in entering this association. So the first step we had was back in 2009 when we got funding for so-called Plan for All project. It was a new European network of best practices. It included, I think, 24 partners from all over Europe. And in this project, the idea to set up association, the Plan for All association, arose. And the idea was to preserve the results, which included some data specifications on land use and so on. And we thought it's a pity to just throw them out or leave them in a drawer. In 2012, we got another funding for the Plan for Business project. It was an advancement of the previous project, where the idea was developed. Eventually, it resulted in a business model where we had, let's say, two layers: the inner core part made of open data and the open data platform, which would be managed by Plan for All. And then we had, let's say, the second layer, some commercial exploitation platform based on open data plus some restricted data, private data. Eventually, we went only with the open data platform, which provides us enough background or enough material to make actually some business as well. And it's not only for us, for the founders or for the members, but also for other external communities. And you will see later on what I mean. In 2015, eventually Plan for All was founded. It was founded by 3 Czech organizations, and now it's been extended to the entire world. Plan for All is, as I already said, an association, is a non-profit association of legal entities. This includes also some self-employed natural persons. And there is the mission of Plan for All is to sustain and further enhance results from previous projects. It also does its role in managing large open data sets. I will mention them later on. It aims to transfer knowledge from those research results so they don't end up in a drawer, as I mentioned. They are used by practitioners. So we tend to transfer the results into practice. As many of our members are from the private sector, there are SMEs, there are NGOs, companies that are able to do the marketing, as Simon said, that might be quite difficult for universities or other, let's say, public bodies. So transfer of knowledge into practice is a key element. So currently the Plan for All network has got 48 members from 20 countries all over the world. Here you can see the map of Europe and the coverage inside Europe. On the website, there's a link. You can see all the 48 members. In last 3 years, from 2015 until 2017, the association was supported by 3 projects, including SDI for apps, Foodie, and Open Transport Net. The support was mainly by providing data that were eventually end up in Plan for All, 3 large open data sets I will mention on the next slide. And also all the results that are publicly available are now part of Plan for All. These are the data sets I mentioned briefly. So we are managing 3 large open data sets. It's Open Land Use Map, Smart Points of Interest, and Open Transport Map. You can go through the links and find out more details, but briefly, the land use map is based on Korean land cover and urban atlas, and we get more detailed sources from some national, regional, or local sources. So, for example, the Czech Republic is covered by data coming from cadastre, so very high detailed data. Other parts of Europe might be of coarser data. Smart Points of Interest is the biggest open database of harmonized points of interest in the world. And Open Transport Map is a transport map for navigation, for routing, and it's based on OpenStreetMap, but it includes some additional features such as visualization of traffic. And currently, from 2017 until 2020, there are 2 projects which are supporting Plan for All. It's Data Bio and NextGEOSS. And also we have 3 ongoing projects. So in the Plan for All Association, we have 3 H2020 projects currently executing. It's the EuSDAT project focused on precision farming, Polyvisu focused on policy development, especially in the transport domain, and EO for Agri, which will start in November this year, again focused on precision farming. This is my last slide, and this is just an invitation for everyone who is interested to join and who would like to know more and get involved in the activities that we do. So this is a call for members. So if you would like to become a member, please go through the constitution of Plan for All and see if you would be interested. Go through the website where you can see some references, links to the open data, all the members and all the activities in news we do. and that Bente will also introduce after me about the INSPIRE Hackathons.
Yes, the INSPIRE Hackathon, it's a type of activity. So Thomas was talking about a type of an organization. I will talk about an activity called the INSPIRE Hackathon. And I wear several hats. As you see, NextGEOSS was mentioned by Simon already, and Plan for All by Thomas, and I'm involved in both, and this work is a part of both of these activities, in addition to my own SME. So the next one, what I will talk very briefly about is I will explain what is the INSPIRE Hackathon and how it does contribute to sustainability, and a few examples of results, so you get an idea of that. Next one. So an INSPIRE Hackathon is not an event, it is a process. And Karel Harwat, one of the co-founders who couldn't be here today, is the one who repeatedly says this, and it is actually truth. The next one. So that means, what more specifically does it mean? The INSPIRE Hackathon is a series of collaborative events, and it's for developers, researchers, designers, and others that are interested in open data, volunteer geographical information, and citizens observatories. So it's the concept of a hackathon. You might have an idea of it's a young kid hacking into a computer, or at least young students. In this case, this is for I like to say, the seasoned expert of all ages. It could be a young woman or a very grown-up man, as long as they are having some sort of skill, some advanced skill, I would say, this is for them. The next one. Simon? Yes, thank you. It is driven also by these experts that very often come from Horizon 2020 projects, and they have a common goal. They want to make sustained use of results based on Copernicus, the European Earth Observation Program, INSPIRE, and GEOSS. So please note that it's not INSPIRE itself, the INSPIRE directive, which we are borrowing the name from. The common thread, though, for all these three main organizations or activities is that they want to work on interoperability. So that is the common ground, and we are accommodating sustainability for across several activities, not only INSPIRE. And you see here a whole bunch of logos, a logo soup. And those are the different Horizon 2020 projects. And as you see, also some international organizations such as OGC, the Open Geospatial Consortium, and GODAN, the Global Open Data for Agriculture and Nutrition. And we also have with us a couple of the big European data portals. So it has grown into a very large community. Next one, please. So how do we actually contribute to sustainability, to project sustainability? So we provide some continuity in between the different activities. And here you see a row of the hackathons that we have already organized. This started in 2016, where we focused on volunteer geographical informations and citizens observatories, and it was a on-site or face-to-face event during the INSPIRE conference. The INSPIRE conference is an annual event. In 2017, we had a combination. We started to have a combination of virtual hacking with a face-to-face, and that is the format of today. In between, we have something called the Satellite INSPIRE Hackathon, in order to provide, to facilitate the continuity. So people working on something and achieving a result in the hackathon, in one of the annual hackathon, they can continue to work in satellite hackathons so that they don't have to wait a whole year. And indeed, we see that there is a transfer of the result from one hackathon team continued to work together and even recombined. So it's a totally open for everybody at all times. So if you find a topic, a team in INSPIRE Hackathon, you will be welcome. It will be possible for you to join this team and be part of this process. I can give some examples on the Orléans OGC INSPIRE Hackathon in March 2018. The topic was metadata and standards. So that's another thing. We focus on different aspects of interoperability, say, and work focused on that topic. And this year we had the last event we organized was the Antwerp INSPIRE Hackathon in September, and the topic there was APIs. So you can see that some of the results are being brought into INSPIRE Hackathon. It's open for everybody, so it's a chance also to work across different projects. So like Simon said, that there are different parts of your project that might be reused together with others. And you don't have to make your project sustainable in one whole as an entity. You can take bits and parts of it. And this is what the INSPIRE Hackathon partly is facilitating. The next one, please. So some of the results that we have so far, just to give you an example. Next one. So we have a component in NextGEOSS, which has been already when we started the NextGEOSS project, it was a result of several other, not Horizon 2020, it was a Framework 7 and maybe even 6, I don't remember, but the user feedback system mechanism was developed, and it was continued to be developed through several hackathons and implemented thus in several other Horizon 2020 projects. So that's one example of how you can use the hackathon activity to make your results sustainable. Another, yes, and then just one more, the combination, you can also combine a project that are currently working, are running, like we did with the INSPIRE Data Bio and NextGEOSS projects. We combined Earth observation data with statistics and big data. So you can use the hackathon. It's sort of creating a working space which is neutral. You can use the resources you have, and then in that way secure that that the results will be sustainable beyond the project. Thank you. Next one. So just to put a face on the people, it's all about the people working together. And here you see the winners of this year, the last hackathon. They are representing the projects behind them, but not only. They are members of Plan for All as well. And this year we had a general winner, and we also had a special prize for security. So we can use, and we are using the hackathon concept, INSPIRE Hackathon concept in several ways, and it's very flexible. And I believe that was it. Next one. Yes. Thank you so much. You can follow us, learn more about this hackathon and Plan for All through these 3 Twitter accounts. Planet Bye, that's myself. Al Plan 4, All Plan 4, that's Plan for All, and the NextGEOSS. Thank you very much.